Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I've had several requests to do an update on my air plants and also how I care for them. I've done a video in the past to show you guys some of my air plants, but I've actually acquired a few more since then, so I will just do a video to show you all of my air plants and how I grow them. They're actually great companion pieces for your orchids because they take very similar care. So a lot of those that grow air plants and orchids will grow them together. They take the same amount of light, they're very hardy, and they also take about the same amount of temperature, the same amount of water. So it's actually really great to grow them together because they can go on the same schedule as your orchids. There are so many different types of air plants that you can always find something that suits your space and your needs and your likes. So there are like these, what I would call these hard leaves air plants. So their leaves are a little bit harder, and then they have the softer leaves. So these are super soft and they have a little bit of a hair on them, so when you pet them they're very soft. Now they also have different sizes, so these are a little bit smaller, and then you have the medium size. So this one can grow out to be quite tall and long, and it can also kind of fall into the large category. These are also a sort of large air plants, and individually they aren't that big, but when they're together like in a clump they can get quite big. So this one is just one main plant and then it has several pups, and this one I've shown you quite a bit of times. This was from Growing Things from Chris. He sent this to me when I won a contest, and it's grown quite a bit. I actually divided it up already. But then there are these huge ones over here. These, you can definitely pot them, although they don't really need to be potted because they are still air plants. These can be pretty big. I mean, they're very huge. And then I have all of these seed pods. This here is a medium size air plant, and it really reminds me of a fire basically, because you can sit them up on their bottoms and then they look like they're just fiery, which is pretty awesome. And this one is a medium size one. You can see all the roots that are coming out of there. So with air plants, they don't really need their roots in order to survive because they take their nutrients from their leaves. So their roots right there are mostly for stabilization or stabilizing the plant, attaching themselves to something so they could hold on, so then they're not just lying on the ground. Now that one has a lot of roots, but this one here doesn't have any roots at all, and this one has some roots to it, so it's attached to my orchid right here. So how these guys propagate is through their seeds and their pups. The seeds are pretty easy to grow once they have flowers and a seed pod. They will take quite a long time to develop into these seed pods, and then what happens is at some point the seed pods will kind of explode. It'll open up really quickly and very fast, and all of the seeds, which are very soft and very similar to dandelions, but even softer than that, they'll have very soft hairs that will basically disperse into the wind. They'll fly off, they'll attach to something, and then they will grow new plants. The easiest way to propagate them is, of course, through their pups though. So here is a plant that have pups, And I actually divided this one up already. So here's the main plant on this side, and then you can see the little pups that are coming out. So that one is one, and then there's another one right there. I had 3, which I removed the biggest one for my sister. You can remove the pups at some point, so I would say maybe that one right there is too small, but you can definitely remove a semi-bigger one. What I do is I just wait until the babies are about half the size of the moms, and then I can remove them. So you can see that this one is about half of the size of the mama. It's definitely ready to be removed, although you can also choose to not remove them. And here's what I did for this one. I put it next to my Vanda, actually in the same basket, and it's actually attached to the Vanda already. So you can see it's kind of hard to pull out. This is the mama right here, the main plant, and then these are all the babies that are coming out. So this is a cluster of air plants, and they are not tied together. They're actually one whole plant. And you can get this look, or this cluster ball basically, by hanging the main plant upside down. So this is something that I've learned from I think it was Jonathan from Cal West Tropical, which he changed his business name. But I went over there to talk to him a little bit, and he taught me how to make a cluster or a ball of air plants. And that is to hang the main plants, when you have just one, is to hang the main plants upside down. And what happens is the babies that come out will grow upwards. So it'll grow in the opposite direction of the main plant. And then after a while, like see, this one is growing upwards towards the light. And then at some point, you're going to rotate the plant. So wherever that you're not getting a plant, you'll rotate that side upwards. So then the next baby that comes out is going to grow upwards, and eventually when you rotate them enough, they're going to grow into a ball of air plants. You can get like a whole bunch of plants and glue them together into a ball, or you can have nature do it for you, which is what happens here. So I had a main plant, and then what I did was I just hung it upside down. So that's where the bottom is. I hung it upside down, and all the babies grew upwards. So it looks like it's a whole ball of air plants. This is what I mean. So this plant, the main plant here, I actually hung it upside down, and you can see that all the babies are growing upwards like this. So I can eventually rotate this guy. So if I'm missing like a plant right here, what I can do is rotate it this way, and then all of the babies will grow upwards. You can see that this plant is a little bit pointy, so it's not going to really look like a ball because it's so long. The more effective plants for creating the ball is to have a shorter type of plant, so something like that. These guys with these soft leaves, they don't do so well as a ball because they're all just kind of growing all over the place. You can still try to do it, but they won't have the same effects because they're not a harder leaf type of air plant, and the leaves will just kind of grow everywhere, and if you bend them, that leaf will just stay bent. So those are not good for like creating an air plant ball, basically. These actually are pretty awesome for creating just an air plant ball. I grow all of my air plants with my orchids, so they hang out with the cattleyas, the oncidiums, and the vandas the most. Vandas get pretty high light, so I hang them up on this pole, and they get the most amount of light with the dendrobiums. The air plants love it. They love being in super high light. So this one is getting pretty highlight with my Bangkok Sunset. They like the highlights, and I find that in order for them to grow bigger and have a lot of pops, that they do need that highlight. I find that when I was growing them inside of the office, where they're kind of further away from the window, that they weren't growing at all. Like, they were living and they were surviving, but they were not getting bigger. They weren't putting out pups. I always tell everyone who asks me about how to grow air plants is that they need to provide them with a lot of light. In terms of watering, I just water them at the same time that I water my orchids. I hose them down. It's always good to test out the hardness or the softness of your water though. My water is not that hard, so I don't have a lot of residue on my plants. However, if you have extremely hard water, something to think about is to try to get filtered water or reverse osmosis or something that isn't as hard, because if you have extremely hard water, they will leave a white residue on your plants and they won't be as good for your plants. In the winter, I water them about twice a month, and air plants can rot, so a good thing to do is to always put them upside down, so when you water them, the water doesn't get all the way into sort of like the body or the crown of the plant, and then it'll sit in there for a long time, kind of like Phalaenopsis, and then they'll rot. They're extremely easy to take care of because they don't need any sort of soil. They're clean plants because there's just no soil involved, and whenever you see a pest, just get rid of it because they are just exposed like that. There's nothing living in the soil because there's no soil. They are pretty hardy, so I find that the ones with the harder leaves, such as that one, are a little bit hardier than the ones that are a softer leaf like this one. If you're new to growing air plants, I would definitely recommend something that's on the cheaper side and that they're a thicker leaf or harder leaf type, because they're just a lot easier to take care of. They hold their shape, they look great, and they're just so rewarding because they are so easy to grow. There's not a lot of thinking involved. If you're growing just one of them, you can dunk them in water and just water them like that. You can keep them in water for about 15 minutes a week. The most important thing that you can provide your air plants is light. Super bright light, because they will grow very big. That's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.